Hey guys, and welcome to a bit of a different video. I don't often do discussion type videos, but after a couple of comments and a few messages in game, I decided to address this little bit in a separate video, and that is weapon comparisons. As you should know by now, I take each and every weapon on their own merits. I'm not going to say don't bother with this weapon because this one is better, or if I want to do something with a weapon then just use something else because it's better. However, this is something I've decided to do since my Akstiletto Prime video has had a decent amount of feedback on this issue, with comparisons between it, the Twin Grakatas and the Aksomati. Now it's safe to say that before I release one of these videos, in one of my Lex Max videos in sort of more specifically, I do my research. I thoroughly test the weapons and the builds to make sure they actually make sense, and a fair amount of time is spent in the simulacrum testing the weapons. And while I might not talk about it in my videos, this includes a fair amount of testing between weapons to see how they stack up against each other. So why is this relevant? I can hear you asking that. Well, I've had a few comments and messages saying that if I want to do a crit secondary, I should just use the Aksomati. Or if I want a status-based Bullethose secondary, then just use the Twin Grakatas because of its status combined with fire rate. Now this has got me interested, and wondering how does the Akstiletto Prime stack up against the other two Bullethose powerhouses. So I went back into the simulacrum, decided I was going to settle this. Now in terms of both Corpus and Infested, there was so little to choose between all three of these weapons. So little that I've decided not to show the footage. It was fractions of a second each time, using builds that make sense on all three of these weapons. However, the big difference between them all came against armoured targets without corrosive projection, which includes both Grineer and the Corrupted. The testing against the level 135 Corrupted Heavy Gunners showed a clear winner of the three, and that was the Akstiletto Prime. The extra status it has over the Aksomati and the Twin Grakata meant that it stripped the armour so quickly, allowing it to do more damage more quickly. The average time to kill against that level 135 gunner was 4.6 seconds. Twin Grakata, that was in a close second, but the problem was that ridiculous reload on it. It really hurt the time to kill versus the Akstiletto Prime, with its average of 6.51 seconds, and the weakest against those armoured targets was the Aksomati, with his average time to kill of 7.4 seconds, 2.8 seconds longer than the Akstiletto Prime. Now I know that often you don't get to see level 135, or even if you do, you're probably running corrosive projection, but in something like the Salties where they might have additional armour as one of the additional things on the mission, or even in those lower levels such as Salties, when they're very heavily armoured units, the same thing applies, although naturally the gap between the weapons isn't quite as pronounced as it is at those extreme levels. But the thing is that at the end of the day, this shows that the Akstiletto, it might be a status-based weapon, with enough crit to make that work extremely well. So much so that it easily keeps up with both the Aksomati and the Twin Grakata, and even overtakes them when you start having to deal with scaling armour levels. Now there's no real clear winner in the battle between these three weapons until you start going to that higher level content, which is where the Twin Grakata, but even more so, the Akstiletto Prime really come into their own. But from a personal point of view, the ability to spread status procs around with the Akstiletto Prime, whether it's confusion from radiation, which takes damage away from you, toxin procs from, toxin damage, or shredding armor with corrosive, that is where the Akstiletto Prime stands out ahead of the other two weapons. I would say that the combination of crit and status, combined with a much better ammo economy than the other two weapons, really put it to the top of its class. Plus, who can argue with weapons that look as amazing as the Akstiletto Prime do? As always guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you in the next one.